Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello friends, this is Vijay. Welcome to ForumIAS Hindu Daily. In our today's news analysis, we will be seeing the list of articles in the display. Without any delay, let us dive into the article number 1. GDP to grow 6.5% in 2023 to 2024. The survey it mentions. Okay. So the real GDP, what we projected earlier was 7%, but the survey it shows that the country's real GDP is expected to grow at a rate of 6.5% in financial year 24. Okay, so this is what they had given in this article. And in the second point, pandemic induced blows are over and there is a rosy picture ahead, like that they had given, which means we are recovering from the impact of what it had been provided to us by the pandemic lockdown. Okay, then the third point, though the world economy is slowing and the global uncertainties are there, economy will grow at a 6.5% because the demand creation is there in India. Therefore, we no need to worry about the global slowdown. Here, that's what I discussed right now. The solid domestic demand and domestic investment both are picking up. Therefore, we don't need to worry about the global uncertainties. Okay. What is the state of economy in 2023 to 2024? Here they are just playing with the words. Okay, recoupled what was lost, which means we are recovering what we lost in the pandemic, renewed what has passed. We are renewing the operations what we passed in the lockdown time, and re-energized what had slowed since the pandemic and conflict in Europe. Okay, so these are the words they are just playing. You no need to worry about it. Now let us see the projections what they are showing. There is an upside risk to the commodity price due to the China restarting their economy. Okay, so it is a bit risky for India. Then the second one, inflation. Right now it is in the 6.8%, which is above the monetary agency's limit, because in India 4 plus or minus 2. Okay, sorry. 4 plus or minus 2 is the range what we are having in India according to the RBI. But right now 6.8% is the inflation, which is slightly above the tolerable limit. But it won't affect the demand creation in India. This is what the survey have been mentioning. Also, the private consumption and all, it won't get deterred by this inflation rate. And moreover, the inflation will get lightened over the time passes. So this is what the survey have been reporting here. On the monetary authorities and the fiscal authorities, they need to stay proactive, because even though we are in a comfortable position, there are certain risks are there. As we already discussed, there will be an upside risk to commodity price due to China restart their economy, right? So these are the things we need to take in the calculation. Then the current account deficit, okay, it is turning extremely negative, and the reasons for the current account deficits are, you might have known, the exports are getting slowed down and we are doing massive imports. Then due to the strong domestic demand, the import bill is very high. Okay, because domestic production is not up to the mark, therefore we are importing the products, which resulting in the massive current account deficit. Then the commodity prices still above the pre-conflict levels. The most of the commodities what we are importing from Ukraine and Russia are getting stopped. So it have been also affecting the current account deficit pages of India. Okay, as you know very well that whenever the current account deficit increases, the depreciation pressure on currency will be very high, because we will be pounding out the dollars from our coffers. Therefore, the rupee will get depreciated. So this is what it have been mentioning here. Then the monetary tightening cycle, it's very prolonged in India. Therefore, it have been affecting the long-term growth. Okay, because borrowing costs are very high. Therefore, it have been affecting the long-term investments and all. Then low global growth, it is a silver lining for India because oil prices are very low. In India, we are importing almost 80% of the oil resources, right? Therefore, the low oil prices, it will provide some benefits and it will not drain the dollars from our coffers. Okay. Therefore, once we adjust the domestic demand and domestic supply means we can match the current account deficit. So these are the two positives we are having in our hand right now. And India's growth will achieve the 7% to 8% if these things are happen means. The first one, macroeconomic stabilization, the inflation and related aspects and all need to be get stabilized. Then fiscal consolidation that need to be restored and continued thrust on infrastructure building. Okay. Here the government also should pound out the resources for infra building. Okay. Then encouraging women's employment because the female labor participation rate it is below 20%. Therefore, we need to encourage the women's in the labor force. So if we are increasing the women in the share of labor force means then automatically it will spur the total GDP. Then we need to dismantle LIC, the license, inspection and compliance because it have been paving the way for the red tapeism. Therefore, we need to bring everything in digital mode which will ensure the transparency in the licensing, inspection and compliances. Okay. So this is what the survey had discussed. Now let us dive into the article number 2. And this is our second article. It is all about the shipping industry. Yesterday in Parliament, the government had submitted the economic survey. So in that economic survey, they clearly mentioned about the importance of the shipping industry, especially the shipbuilding industry. Okay. So you might have known almost 90% of the value and 95% of the volume of trade we are carrying out through the marine fleets. So it brings out the importance of these industries. Also, in the survey, they clearly mention about the potential of this industry and the capacity to create the employment, and it have been emphasizing also on the marginal consumption to GDP ratio. Now let us see one by one in brief. Here they had given the shipping industry has the potential to increase the contribution not only to the manufacturing but also to the services sector, and cumulatively it will contribute to the national GDP. So this is what they have been discussing here, and it have been playing a vital role in ensuring the energy security, national defense and the development of heavy engineering industry. How it will be creating the energy security, national defense and how it will be contributing to the heavy engineering sectors, because in shipbuilding we will be collaborating the developments from multiple domains, right? Especially the navigations and the steel structure and all we will be bringing out from the steel industries. So that's how the advancements what we are making in the shipbuilding industry, it will be having a ripple effect in the rest of the industries that are depending on this industry. Okay. So if we are developing the modern navigation for our shipping industry means, then we can use the same navigation in military aspects also. So that's what it have been discussing here. And the statistics, it mentions that marginal consumption to GDP ratio for the shipping industry is 0.45. So it is comparatively a good value, okay, than the rest of the sectors. Also, it mentions about the investment multiplier. Investment multiplier is nothing but if you are investing 1 rupee means you need to get the same 1 rupee or above that. So if you are getting the return below 1 rupee means then you are losing in that industry. So here with respect to the shipping industry, the multiplier is 1.82. So if you are investing 1 rupee means in turn you will be getting 1.82 rupees. The same example they had given for 1.5 lakh crore. If the government is investing 1.5 lakh crore in the naval shipbuilding projects means it will lead to the accumulation of 2.73 lakh crore in the future. Also, shipbuilding, it also having massive employment opportunities. Almost the value, the employment multiplier is 6.48. So if we are investing the amount to create one employment in the other sector means we will be getting 6.48 employment opportunities in this shipping industry. So this is what the employment multiplier is all about. Then they had given some examples or some case studies related to these facts. Previously, in most of the shipping projects, the contribution of MSME is very high. You might have known in India, 40% of the employment is created by the MSME sector. So the nexus between the shipping industry and the MSME will lead to the massive employment creation in India. Okay. So this is what they have been mentioning here. And in the case study, they mentioned about the INS Vikrant. With respect to the project INS Vikrant, some 500 MSMEs have been participated, and from the ancillary industries, almost 12,000 employments have been created. Also, the shipyard employees also got around some 2,000 employments. Okay, so this is what the project INS Vikrant with respect to the employment creation. Then they mentioned about the P-17A frigate. In P-17A frigates, we emphasized much on the indigenization. Therefore, we infused the 3/4 of the project cost into the economy, Indian economy itself. Okay, so it emphasizes on not only the shipping industry but also on the indigenization. Here they mentioned about it, right? The 7 P-17A frigates, where we invested back the 3/4 of the project cost. Okay, this all happened because of the indigenization. And in these days, the government is also emphasizing on the Earth Ganga, the development of inland waterways. So to develop the strong inland waterways, we should be keeping the strong shipping industry, right? Then only the vessel cost and the repairing and the overhauling cost and all will come down. Therefore, the people will be getting the lowest price for their transportation and also for the shipment of the goods. Okay. Now let us see the another article. Before that, let us see a brief look on Atmanirbhar Bharat. The 5 pillars of the Atmanirbhar Bharat are economy and infrastructure, then system, demography and demand. With respect to the economy, we need to do a quantum jumps, not the incremental changes. Okay, step by step we are not going to make here with respect to the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. Rather than we are going to emphasize on the quantum jumps. Okay, then with respect to the infrastructure, here we are going to represent a modern India. Therefore, the infrastructure and all will be a tech-driven one. Therefore, here we need to infuse the system with the technology, because all the infrastructure what we are going to construct under the Atmanirbhar will be a tech-driven one. To support the growth, we are going to reap the potential from the demography, because India, 69% of the people of the total population is they are a dividend to the Indian democracy. Therefore, we need to reap the benefits of the demographic dividend, else it will become a demographic burden. So this is what the 4th pillar is all about. Then the demand. This is the 5th pillar, demand. So before selling any product in the market, that should be a demand, right? So that's what the pillar have been emphasizing. First, we need to create a demand. For that, the purchase power among the masses should be very high. So then we need to reap the potential of the demand by creating a supply chain. Okay. So here under the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, 20 lakh crores, almost 10% of the GDP have been going to allocate under various schemes, and the focus is on land, labor, equity and laws. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, we are going to take on board the laborers, middle class, cottage industries, MSMEs and other industries. Okay, because among these industries, the economic disparity is very high. Therefore, the government is going to give focused emphasis here. What are the bold reforms? The supply chain reforms we need to do. Okay, in the pandemic time, we all well known what it had happened in the supply chain. There was a supply chain disruption was there. So therefore, the supply chain, it is acquiring huge focus here. Then the rational tax system, because if we are maintaining a tax-friendly system means then it will attract the capital, right? So therefore, we need to maintain a rational tax system. Then the clear laws will reduce the red tapeism. Therefore, we can speed up the new projects and all. Then the capable human resource. If we don't have the capable skill means then the demographic burden will be created in the future rather than the demographic dividend. Then strong financial system. It will bring the financial inclusion and the women empowerment. Okay. So now let us move into the next slide. In today's editorial, one article came, the author is having negative opinion about the solar energy. Therefore, I handpicked some few basics about the solar mission and the solar energy in India. You might have known in the year of 2008, the then government, they launched the National Action Plan on Climate Change. Okay. So under that, there was a one mission, National Solar Mission. So under the National Solar Mission, they kept the target as a 20,000 megawatt. But the 2014, the new government, they came into power and they revised the target into 100 gigawatt. Okay. 1 lakh megawatt, which means here the contributions are split up or given below. The rooftop solar electricity generation will be 40 gigawatt. Okay. The target for the rooftop solar electricity generation will be 40 gigawatt, and the large and medium scale grid connected solar projects will be 60 gigawatt. Here the private participation is getting encouraged by the government, and to achieve 15 million square meters of the solar thermal collector area by 2017 and 20 million by 2022. Then under the target, they are going to deploy 20 million solar lighting systems for the rural areas by 2022. These are the ultimate targets which envisaged under the National Solar Mission. And this is a split up of 175 gigawatt. Okay. So here 100 gigawatt they allocated for the solar. Okay. Sorry. $100 gigawatt they allocated for the solar, among which 40 gigawatt is rooftop and 60 gigawatt based on solar photovoltaic. Then the next 60 gigawatt we are going to reap from the wind energy. Then 10 gigawatt is from the biomass. Okay. Then the rest of the 5 gigawatt from the small hydro. Here the large hydro projects hadn't been envisaged, but in the article the author have been emphasizing more about the large hydro projects. Let us see the article in brief. Solar energy is not the best option for India. This is the title of the article. And in the introduction, he mentioned about the favoritism the government and the pro people have been showing upon the solar energy. In the past, the price of the solar cost was very high, but these days it came close to the electricity what we are generating from the thermal power plants. So this is what in the intro part he have been discussing, but he have been throwing some two flaws to break this argument. The first flaw, there is a wrong comparison of the solar power with the electricity what we are generating from the thermal power plants. In the thermal, we are including the logistics cost. From the mining zone, we need to transport the coal, right? So from the mining sector to the pulverization in the thermal power plant, there will be a huge logistics cost, which comes around almost half of the cost what we are incurring for generating the electricity in thermal power plants. This is what he have been quoting. But in the solar, we are not calculating the storage cost, especially the battery prices and all. Okay. So this is the first flaw he have been mentioning. And here he also quoting that the protagonist, they might argue we need to add the environmental cost of carbon to the coal. But in the international market, the carbon prices have been slashed, and the carbon, especially the coal, what we are getting is reduced drastically, And compared to the international market price, the real prices of the coal is very low. So this is what the author have been discussing here. In this portion, the author have been discussing what I dictated now. Under the subtitle Coal, Solar and Some Calculations, the author have been quoting the data from some social researchers. He have been mentioning that those researchers, they have been emphasizing much on the local issue but not on the issue affecting the international community. Example, they have been including the factor of PM 2.5 in calculating the impact but not the greenhouse gas what we are emitting from the carbon. Okay, so this is what he have been mentioning here. And also he discussed about the compensation factor involved in the calculation of the total amount. Okay, so in US they have been calculating it as a 1.8 crore as a compensation for the people who are dying because of the air pollution. And here some researchers they arrived at a figure of 1 crore. So there is a massive parity is there. So these are the things the author have been discussing in this part, but it is not that much important from the exam point of view. Okay. And also in the same title, he also discussed about how the solar is made viable. Okay. Because the government and the private agencies have been hiding the storage cost, what we are incurring in storing the electricity, what we are generated from the solar panels, right? So there will be a storage cost, right? Because the battery prices and the related lithium prices and all we need to calculate. So that we didn't include. Then the government have been providing massive subsidies and the price concessions and all have been provided by the government. These factors and all brought down the prices compared to the price what we are having in the past. Okay. Then the government agencies, they have been forcing the industries to adopt the energy what we are reaping from the solar energy. So these are the things the author have been discussing in this title. And he also quote the, because of these forceful measures, we missed the targets in this national solar mission by 40 to 50%. And discoms also, they are seeing these days some lower prices with respect to the bids. Okay. So this is what the author have been discussing here. Then in the conclusion part, he have been throwing some valuable arguments in favor of the hydropower. He is stating that in the hydropower, the carbon emission is negligible and the investment capital and the working capital and all will be very low compared to the thermal power plant and the solar panels. So therefore we need to adopt the hydropower, especially the large hydro project in a massive scale. Therefore, the author have been showing the China's model of renewable energy resource development because they have been emphasizing much on the large hydro projects. Example, 3 Gorges project and the projects what they are constructing on the river Brahmaputra. Okay. Apart from that, he is also quoting that Europe and the USA, they almost reap 90% of their potential what they are having in the hydro power projects. But with respect to India, India reaped only 15% of the potential. Therefore, India need to focus much on the large hydro projects rather than the small hydro projects. This is what the author have been discussing here. But what is the issue India is facing? The environmentalists, they were taking the stand against the large hydro projects. And in India, we also well known that the compensation for displacement and all is not proper. So these are the issues are there that we need to sort out. And he is also quoting about the NTPC. NTPC prime role is to develop and to maintain the power system related to the thermal energy alone. But these days they have been broadening their scope and it will become a backfire for them. This is what the author have been concluding with respect to the NTPC. Okay. Now let us see the next article. This is the 4th article of the day. Yesterday, I already told you the economic survey was tabled in Parliament. So it talks about the MG-Narega scheme. Here, how important is MG-Narega to rural employment? Okay. Here they discussed about the importance of the MG-Narega scheme. MG-Narega, it is a demand-driven scheme. Okay. It guarantees 100 days of unskilled labor to every household in the country, especially to the rural population. Its general focus is to create a rural demand. Okay. So this is what the MG-Narega scheme is about. If some person, if they are not getting the work means, then within 15 days, okay, they will be provided with the unemployment allowance. So these are all the few provisions in the MG Narega scheme. During the time of COVID, okay, the government had imposed the lockdown, right? So in that time, the demand for the unskilled labor work under the MG Narega scheme was extremely high, and it provided some earnings to the breadwinners of the family. Okay, so these are all the things they have been discussing in the passage here. Now let us see the second title. How has the center's allocation for MG Naregs changed over the years? Okay, here generally the government in the past 2013 to 2014, they allocated somewhere around 33,000 crore approximately. Okay, the exact amount is 32,992 crore. But in 2021, they allocated 73,000 crores. Okay, the budget have been rising for the MG Nareg scheme, especially the 73,000 crore. The allocated budget was a expenditure what they had sanctioned during the budget time, but in the conclusion of the year or in the end of the finance year, the spurt was there and the allocated budget was above 1 lakh crore. Okay, so that's what they have been discussing here. And the Parliamentary Standing Committee on the Rural Development, it actually questioned the center's budgetary allocations. Okay, anyway, the budget is going to be very high. Why the government have been allocating very low amount in the budgeting time? This is what they had questioned. And in the challenges to its implementation passage, it is very important from the perspective of mains. Okay, because lot of points they had given, I actually shortlisted the points what they had given in this passage. But before getting into it, let us discuss the facts what they are given in this passage through the chart. Okay, in the first chart they had given that average days of employment per household under the scheme in the 2016 to 2017, and in 2018 also the average days of employment was 46 days, and in 2018 2019 it was rolling between 51 to 52. In the pandemic time households, the demand was very high, and in the year of 2021, the average day was 45. Then in 2022, it came down slightly to the 42. Okay, from the 45, what we witnessed in the 2021. So this is with respect to the average days of employment per household under the scheme. And here they had, in the second chart, they had given that the number of households in crore which availed, okay, not just demanded. Actually, after demanding, the government will allocate the work. Okay, so this is what they had given in 2016. Almost 5.12 crores of families they benefited under the scheme, and it went up to 7.55 in 2018-2019, and in the pandemic lockdown time it was around some 6.81. Okay, 6.81 crores of family they benefited through this program, and in 2022 5.7 was the beneficiary households under the scheme. Okay, and in the budgetary allocation they had given, I already told you, for past 3 years if you are knowing the budgetary allocation means it will be fine. Okay, don't dig deeper into this chart. And in 2021-2020 you can see that a budgetary allocation was above 1 lakh crore, especially after the budgetary expenditure. The actual expenditure was shoot up because of the pandemic lockdown. Therefore, it reached up to the staggering 1 lakh crore. Okay, 1.13 lakh crore was invested through the scheme in the year of 2020-2021. Okay, in the fourth chart, they had given that the number of persons demanding work under the scheme. If you are seeing the chart means you might have known only one thing. Between April to July, there was a spurt in demand, right? Because it is an off season for agriculture, so there won't be any demand for labors from the agriculture domain. Therefore, people will be demanding the they skilled work under the MGNREX scheme. And in the 2020 20 to 21, the demand was very high. Okay, the number of persons demanding the work was very high, so that they clearly mentioned in this chart. Kindly have a look. Don't go deeper into the facts and all. Okay, because the challenges to its implementation is very important from the perspective of mains. Now let us discuss it. According to the PR's legislative research, only 10% of the households they completed the 100 days of wage employment under the scheme. After demanding the work, most of the households they hadn't completed the 100 days of employment under the scheme. Okay, so this is what the PR's legislative research have been clearly showing to us. Then the average days of employment which provided under the MGNREX scheme had fallen drastically to the 42 days that we had discussed in the chart number 1. Then the budgetary allocation, that also we already discussed. The budgetary allocation to the scheme is very low, but after that, in the actual expenditure, the government have been covering the remaining expenditure, right? So it actually have been impede the implementation of the scheme. Okay, so this is the challenge number 3. Then there is a massive delay in the wage disbursements. The Supreme Court, it clearly mentioned that the delay in wage disbursements, it amounted to the forced labor. Okay, so this is what it have been discussing here in the last paragraph. Then the material cost, what we are using in the MGNREX it is also getting delayed. So it is having the domino effect on the MGNREGA work. Okay, so this is the challenge number 5. And the wage, okay, what the ministry is calculating, it is based on the consumer price index for the agri laborers. But the labor, what the unskilled laborers they are doing under the MGNREX scheme is highly different from the agricultural laborers. Okay, therefore the panel of the Rural Development Ministry, it requests the implementation agency to adopt the consumer price index rural to be the basis for determining the wages. Okay, so this is the challenge number 6. Then other challenges they had given from the households also, from the household sides also, they are using the fake card jobs. Okay, and there is a widespread corruption in the local implementing agencies. Then there is a delay in the uploading of the muster rolls because there is a massive vacancies are there with respect to the bureaucratic agencies who are implementing the scheme. Then the payment is highly inconsistent, and especially the unemployment allowances. People who worked for the scheme, they hadn't get their wages in time. Okay. Apart from that, the people who are not getting the work, the government should provide the unemployment allowances, right? So that also it is getting delayed because of various bureaucratic hurdles. So these are all the challenges the scheme have been facing. So this is what the author of the article have been discussing here. The out-of-pocket health spending still high despite government chipping in. Okay. Why in news? The same economic survey, it states that still 50% of the total health spending is from the people's pocket. Previously, it was around some 69%, but due to the enlargement of the spending from the government side, it actually lowered to 50%. But still, this 50% is also a very high amount. The share of the government in total health expenditure is 28.6%, okay, which was the amount in the 2013. But in 2019, the share of the government spending in health expenditure is 40.6%. Okay, the rest of the amount it will be pounding out from the pockets of the patients and from the private agencies. What is meant by the out-of-pocket expenditure? See, if you are visiting the hospital means you will be paying the fee for the consulting and the consumables, right? So that is termed as the out-of-pocket expenditure. So it is a resource which have been pounding out by the households to receive the health care. Okay. Then what are the situations which paves to the massive out-of-pocket expenditure? The first one, if government is not paying if government is not allocating the massive health spending means then the people will be ending up in paying the high out of pocket expenditure for their health services. Okay, so this is the situation which have been paving the way to the massive out of pocket expenditure. Then the government hike spending. Okay, this is the subtitle. There they had discussed in 2019 the total health expenditure of the country is 5,96,440 crores, which is 3.2% of the GDP. Okay, per capita expenditure is 4,470 rupees. Okay, the out of pocket expenditure is 48.2% in 2019. But certain states like UP, where the government health expenditure is very low, therefore the people have been ending up in paying 71.3% of the health expenditure from their own pockets. Okay, so the recommendations what they had given is the government should ramp up the health expenditure to 2.5% of the GDP. Right now it have been staggering between 2.1 to 2.2%, but in the future we need to ramp up the health expenditure to 2.5% of the GDP. So this is what they have been discussing here, and in the conclusion they discussed about the NHPS scheme, okay, Ayushman Bharat scheme. These are the few provisions about the NHPS scheme, okay, National Health Protection Scheme, Ayushman Bharat. It is the world's largest healthcare scheme. It is an insurance scheme the government is backing. The out of pocket expenditure of the people will be very high in two situations. If they are not having insurance means they will be ending up in paying the massive amount to the health services what they are taking from the private agencies especially. And another one thing, if government is not providing sufficient budgetary allocations means there also they will be ending up in paying the massive out of pocket expenditure. Okay, therefore the government is coming up with the NHPS scheme. It is the world's largest healthcare scheme, and it is going to cover, or it have been covering 10 crore poor and vulnerable families, almost directly 50 crore beneficiaries. Out of the 130 crore citizens, 50 crore beneficiaries will be covered under this scheme. And the benefit will be 5 lakh per family per annum in secondary and tertiary care institutions. Okay, that is very important. It is not giving any benefits for the primary care, but it will be providing benefits to the secondary and tertiary care alone. Okay, so this is the most important provision. Then it is going to allocate 1,200 crore for the health wellness centers. Okay, the health wellness centers and all will be getting 1,200 crore, and they will be providing some basic health services to the common people. Then 600 crore as a nutritional support for all the TB patients, because in India the TB load is very high. Therefore the government will be providing 600 crore for the recovery of the TB patients. Then 24 new government and medical colleges to be set up by upgrading the existing district hospitals. For every 3 parliamentary constituency, there should be 1 medical college. This is the ultimatum of this scheme. Okay. Now let us see the prelims and mains questions for today's news analysis. The term fiscal stimulus recently appeared in news is related to, because I already told you about the fiscal stimulus. So we can go by the eliminating the options. The option A, massive investment by the government to streamline the supply chain of the economy, because in the pandemic time the government had witnessed the supply chain disruptions. Therefore they had given the option statement A. Okay, but it is a wrong statement. Then the second one, action plan of government to boost the productivity in agriculture sector. For boosting the productivity in agriculture sector, the government is having several initiatives, but fiscal stimulus is not related to the agri sector. Then the third option, affirmative action to propel the economic activity. Let us hold it. Okay. Then option D, affirmative action to support the female labor participation rate and the financial inclusion. Okay. Female labor participation rate and financial inclusion, we are having several schemes, but the government hadn't allocated anything under the fiscal stimulus through these domains. Therefore, option statement C is the right one. To propel the economic activity in a holistic way, the fiscal stimulus will be provided. Okay. So C is the right answer for the question number 1. Consider the following statements related to the Ayushman Bharat scheme. Okay, this is the second question. The statement 1 is, it is the world's largest health scheme. It is the world's second largest health scheme is the statement they had given, but it is the world's largest health scheme and it is an insurance scheme. Okay, so statement 1 is wrong. Then the second statement, the scheme will avail 5 lakh to the beneficiaries getting enrolled in primary and tertiary care. Okay, it will provide 5 lakh to the beneficiaries. Okay, but not for the primary and tertiary care, but to the secondary and tertiary care. Okay, for the primary care, they are going to establish the health and wellness centers, so it will take care of the primary care and all. But for the secondary and tertiary care, the 5 lakh is the beneficiary amount. Then which of the above statements are correct? Okay, both the statements are wrong, so neither 1 nor 2 is the right answer for this question. Now let us discuss the mains question. Here is the mains question for you. Critically examine whether NREGA scheme has been able to address the issue of rural distress. Here they had given the term critically examine. You need to provide both positives and negatives of the scheme, and you should conclude the scheme in a fair way by quoting the data from the economic survey. Okay. In the intro part, you can give that the NREGA scheme is designed for providing unskilled labor to the rural masses. Like that, you can start the intro, and in the benefit and in the positive side, you can quote the women empowerment, financial inclusion, then the rural demand creation and all in the positive aspects. And in the challenges, you can quote what we had discussed in our today's news analysis with respect to the MG NREGA scheme. And in the conclusion, you can show some data about the economic survey. Okay, because the economic survey, it have been showing some valuable data, so you can quote some data from the economic survey and you can conclude the answer. Okay, thank you friends, and thanks for your patience. Let me catch you tomorrow in another news analysis. Bye.